there, friends and sane persons. Welcome to December. It's the first Wednesday of December, and it means it's Wednesday Whimsy time. It's Wednesday Whimsy time every Wednesday, because Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10, or some other game-related topic, usually whatever happens to be on my mind. So we're moving into the end of the year, and the next couple of Wednesday Whimsies are going to be, sort of top. We're going to do a quarterly countdown. We're going to do some top of the year lists. It'll be lots of fun. But I wanted to sort of talk about one game kind of before we go into a series of lists. And the game I picked to talk about today is one that I was pretty excited for, mostly because of the designer. And that game is Daybreak. So Daybreak is designed by Matt Leacock, the creator of Pandemic. It's written right on there. Someone that has a big design pedigree, and somebody else, Matteo Manapace. I don't know who that is. Doesn't matter. So we're going to talk a little bit about Daybreak. I'll tell you how it works and what makes it special, what I don't like about it, and I'll tell you what I think. Let's go. So first of all, what is this about? Well, this game is about global warming. If you're my age, you call it climate change these days, but back in the day, it was called global warming. Basically, you are a nation, sort of, and you are working together with other nations in the world to try and enact policies that are designed to prevent climate disaster. Now, whether you subscribe to that or not, we're within the world of the game. I know that's a hot topic. It's not a very good pun for some people, but anyway, that's what it's about. And that's kind of it. If you are able to reduce carbon production to below the amount you need to support your nation, and if everyone can do that, then you can, then you sort of trigger the end game and can win. Every round you've got sort of your forests and oceans will take care of a certain amount, and anything above that you have to deal with. And if you can't deal with it, it goes to this penalty track. And so you're trying to get it so that you have at least one forest or ocean left, and none of the carbon left in your current year production, and that's gonna signal a win as long as you survive to the end of the game. So how does it work? Well, let me open the game here, or the screen. Had it pulled up here. So we have this. This is kind of. There aren't very many good pictures about the game, so forgive me. But what you have here is this. This is sort of your board, and nothing really happens on the board. Honestly, the board is just about these tracks that are going to track various sort of climate disasters. And then you have this thermometer over here that is going to be where you store all of your unused carbon. And gradually the temperature is going to increase. So the rest of the board is just decorative, which is fine. There's also a round track. But what you're really doing is you have your own player board. And your own player board is actually kind of interesting here. See if I can zoom in on it. All right. So you have here, this is obviously someone who's doing a lot of green production, but you have a certain energy threshold. You need to meet this requirement. You're going to start the game with some level of dirty energy and some level of green energy. And at the end of the round, if you don't meet your requirement, it impacts you negatively. You also have emissions that come in a variety of different types. There's factories, cars, trash, oil, lots of different ways to pollute. And these don't actually do anything for you. In fact, you would prefer to get rid of them. But they do sort of contribute to the carbon production at the end of the round. That's kind of your player board. And then what you have above the player board is 5 projects. And this is kind of the interesting part of the game. You start the game with 5 cards out there that are sort of starter cards. And when it comes to be the action phase, you'll draw a hand of projects from this large deck, and you can take them and play them. And you can either put them behind the cards, which will boost their ability. For example, this is going to contribute those additional tags, which might help the ability. It might let you use it more often. It might make it stronger. You can instead, slide what's up there up as tags and just put something on top so that you have a new project that might be better or more efficient or more what you need right now. Or you can, some of these abilities have an ability where you throw a card away and activate the ability. And so you can do that. And you're going to do that as often as you like until you run out of resources. And then you're going to go into sort of an upkeep phase. And the upkeep phase is particularly nasty in this game. The first thing you're going to do is check your requirements. If you don't meet your energy requirement, you take one of these crisis tokens, and they hurt your ability to draw cards. If you have too many, you can also lose the game if you have too many. And you'll count up how many brown things you have here. So how many of the dirty energy and the dirty emissions you have, and that's going to tell you how much carbon you're producing. You're then going to look at the board and see how much you can neutralize, sequester, the game calls it, by the various natural resources that are out there, and everything else has to go onto this thermometer. When something gets 5 spaces on it, it's full, and when a row gets full, which is this space equal to the number of players, you're going to put out more of these temperature things. And then you're going to look at your disasters, and the disasters. A couple of things are going to happen. It's for each level of heat you have here, you have to roll this die, which is randomly going to move one of these tracks up, and moving them up is never good. Then you're going to resolve the catastrophes that you have going on. Usually it will say, so the face-up ones will usually provide you a way to mitigate it. It'll say, take a card here to negate, or spend this particular resource to protect yourself from this bad effect. But you're always going to have, 3 of these at least, and sometimes even more, and some of them come out face down, and so they're going to come up and surprise you. They're just undisclosed climactic disasters that you have to suffer through. Then you're going to start it all over again, and you're just going to kind of keep this going until either you win the game by getting to a drawdown, it's called, or until you lose the game by either having too many of these catastrophe tokens, or filling this thing all the way up to the top. And there's probably another way to lose too, but those are the main ways. And you win or lose. So it's a cooperative game, if I didn't mention that before. So let's talk about what makes the game special. And I can shut this down here. So one thing that's kind of special about that sort of mechanism where you are you're playing the cards to activate abilities to put out new projects, that can be really fascinating. And if you get the right cards, you can set up really interesting combos where you're able to just you've invested so much into a certain project that each time you do it, it clears a lot of stuff out. And that's really not something you see in a lot of games, is sort of this ability to play something in front or behind. I mean, it's a multi-use card. I guess you do see that in games. But I really find that to be very interesting. It's a theme that, is not overused. The only other game I know that has this theme is CO2. There might be others, but that's the other one I'm immediately aware of, by Vital Lacerda. It's not a very heavy game on rules. It's pretty quick to learn and teach. So those are some good things about it. So where's the but? Well, there's a lot of buts here, unfortunately. First of all, so I'm going to start with the theme. It's not one that speaks to me. I said it was interesting because it's not overused, but it's somewhat of a polarizing theme. Depending on your political leanings, you could find some parts of the game or feel like propaganda. It does sort of have this global warming and prevention aspect, which I think is fascinating. But then there's all kinds of weird social policies thrown in there that don't really have anything to do with preventing climate catastrophe. It's like give people the right to vote, and I don't know, tax restructuring. I mean, those are the kinds of leftist liberal grab bag items that come in and don't have a direct correlation to the theme. And those kind of feel like they're just there either to make people who agree with that feel great about themselves and people who don't feel angry. And so I can find the theme, whatever way you feel about it, to be a little polarizing, and unnecessarily so. But I'm willing to set that aside, right? If this were a theme about puppies and lemonade, I still would have some buts. The first but is the component quality is pretty bad. I mean, pretty abysmal. The game, the components kind of look like they're out of like monikers or something. Just these plain boxes. Like, here is the storage container for the cards, right? It's fine. It's just, very nondescript. And the cards themselves, they have, interesting illustrations on them. That's great. They're clean and easy to read, but they're very poor quality. I worry that they're going to nick and mark pretty easily. Also, they're not finished. The cards don't have a very good finish on them. They're thin and feel kind of cheap, and they don't have a good finish on them, so they're not very satisfying to hold or play with. And they're not. And shuffling them is kind of a pain too, because that finish obviously helps cards, not stick together. The game comes with it was designed to be, have no plastic in it, but it comes with these little like lunch takeout trays that are really very unsatisfying as well. So, I mean, the components are kind of, I find them to be bad, not terrible, but, for a game that's mostly just cards, you kind of wish the cards would have been a little bit finished, a little nicer, a little sturdier, so that they don't feel kind of cheap, because they kind of do. The other thing, though, is that the game really isn't very much fun. It's incredibly punishing. So, the game ramps up. Like, round one, you're going to go up 2 spaces on that temperature track, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the fact that you have, at least 3 events, but no natural way to view what's coming up, means that you're really just flipping a card and seeing how badly it affects you. And that, as a person playing a game, is really very unsatisfying, especially because the game is designed so that, you can plan for things, right? One of the things you can do is use these multi-use cards to negate or mitigate these negative events, and that's cool. But when, you only see one of them and the other 5 are face down, I mean, that's just flip up a card and see what bad things happen. And so it feels like, okay, I do some things on my turn, and then slap, 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 slap. And then, okay, and then it gets worse, right? As you do poorly at the game, it snowballs into even, becoming more punishing. It doesn't balance itself and become easier. Instead, it becomes harder. But it's not hard in the way that, this is fun hard, right? This is a challenge I can plan for and a puzzle I can solve. It's random flip over a card hard, and that's just not very satisfying. I feel like if I lost the game, it's not because of anything I did. It's just because the order that these events came out randomly was just not something I could do anything about. And then you sort of add to it, I said, there's this interesting system where if you get the right cards, you can set up really cool combos where, you're able to do lots of things. But this deck of cards, I mean, I don't know how many are in it, but it's a lot. I guess I could check and see if there's a component list. But there's, easily 200 cards. Well, I won't look at it while I'm filming, but there's a big old deck of cards, and you're just drawing them randomly. There's not a way to sort of, draw 7 and discard 2. It's draw randomly off the top of the deck and hope you got what you needed. And if what you needed was a purple tag, because this cool project you want to do has a purple tag, and you did not draw any purple tags, or maybe it needs 3 purple tags and you only ever see 2, I mean, what are you going to do? And then, as you, depending on the bad events that come up, it can strip your machine. And so you kind of are flailing. It feels like you're treading water until you lose the game. And look, I love a challenge. I love Pandemic. I love all the Pandemics. I mean, Rising Tide is my favorite, and it's by the same designer, at least one of them. And so I was hoping for that because in Pandemic, you have an idea of what's coming. Okay, you don't know what order these cities are going to come up, but you can look and you can see these three are problematic. I might want to focus on them. And then as the game progresses, it does get more challenging, but you're going to take all the cards you've already seen, shuffle them up, and put them on top of the stack, so you know what's there. You know that, if Osaka has never been seen, it's not the one to focus on. You can kind of, take a little calculated risk there. And this one, there was no choice. It was always do this thing that sounds like fun and then hope you're able to do it again. Meanwhile, you're going to be punished for this and this and this and this in this escalating effect. And then, the way that disasters are resolved in addition to the cards is roll a die. And one of these tracks is going to advance. You don't know which one. There's not a way to control it. Also, the game has, if you're playing solo, which I have, there's many of the cards don't work for solo. And it's a lot of them. Like in the event deck, it's got to be at least half of them. I don't know. I haven't gone through the whole deck. But the way you can tell, though, is this little, tiny, minuscule icon. I'm wondering if I can find it here while I'm really quickly. I mean, it's this tiny icon. And you sort of, the way that it would work for me when I played this solo, it'd be I'd draw a card, and I'd be like, how does this work? I'm the only player. And then I would look down and see this tiny icon. And so you're going to be left with either separating out all the cards at the beginning or constantly, flip a card. Oh, okay, this one doesn't work. Draw another card. All right, here's one with the icon. You can kind of see it. It's this little red thing right there. And it's this tiny little symbol on this great big card. That's just not good. There's a QR code, which is nice because apparently you can scan the cards and get information on what they do. That's a great thing. I mean, I think that's something more games should use. But it's just this game feels unfinished. It feels like maybe it needed a couple more times around the old playtesting. Right? Because I just don't know that, if you win it, I don't think you win it because you feel like you did a great job. And if you lose it, you don't really feel like you did anything wrong. You feel like stuff just came up differently. What would I do differently? Nothing. What would I do differently? I'd probably play a different game. So that's kind of, it's rare for me to do, these talks about games that I don't love. And that's because I love talking about games I love. But I don't want it to be a dead giveaway as soon as I talk about a game that I'm going to love it. How do I feel? Where do I come down on this one? Well, I think I'd give this one a 4 out of 10. So it's playable. I spent a couple hours on it over, the course of a few days. It works functionally. All the rules are there, but it's just not any fun. And I don't think I ever want to play it again. So I don't know that I can recommend it to really anyone. If the theme of global warming and climate change really speaks to you, or if you happen to be sort of a left-leaning person, you might get a kick out of the illustrations and sort of the concepts and the way they're implemented. You might get a kick out of that. But I wouldn't buy it. I mean, I'd look at someone else's copy and then be done, because this game really, I don't know who this is for. I do know who it isn't for. It's not for me. So there you go. Big thumbs down on Daybreak. Sorry. And that's all I've got for you this week on Wednesday Whimsy. Like I said, we're going to be going into sort of end of year stuff. Which means next week we're doing quarterly countdown, and then the last 2 weeks of the year I'm going to go over my top 23 games of 2023. So I'll be excited about games again. I'll let Daybreak go. Just spoiler, it's not going to be on those lists. But that's what I've got for you. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to wish you safe travels and courage when you need it. And I'll hope to see you back again next week on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.